Hello Potters, how are you today? So as I promised you in a previous video, I would be doing a review of the Diamond Core tools that Diamond Core sent me over the past holiday. If you haven't seen the previous video, I heavily suggest you go see it first, as it is kind of a prequel to this video right here. The first tool that we have here is the T-6 from Diamond Core. I think it's one of their most popular carving tools. They always come with this little protective case whenever they send them to you, and I think it's really just to protect the integrity of the carving tool at the top. And before you say anything, because I do see a little bit of clay right there, and I'm sure you see it too, I did use this last night as I was kind of carving some stuff just to play with it a little bit, and I did notice a very smooth pull in it, which is what I usually look for whenever I'm messing with my carving tools. As for this tool down here, this is the T-7. This is their avocado trim tool, and it is the direct competition to the pear-shaped trim tools from Kemper. It looks exactly like a pear-shaped trim tool. The only real difference is that it's a little bit smaller, and I actually bought a brand new Kemper tool just to compare the two, as they are brand new. So this way we get to compare this to this. They're both brand new. Just as a little pre-note for anyone who's buying Diamond Core tools, they technically are replaceable, so you don't have to keep on buying them like you would the Kemper tools. Once a Kemper tool dies out, it's dead. You have to either buy another one or you have to figure out a way to sharpen it. But these here come with replacements. You can just screw these little pieces off and easily replace the entire tool by itself while still keeping the handle safe and sound. This became extremely obvious to me because number one, you could see little screws on the side, and secondly, they actually sent me a replacement package with my own package. So I opened these up, and these are both of the tools that they sent me. The only difference is these are not screwed on yet. So once these die out, I can very easily just replace the entire thing once it starts to non-sharpen. Granted, these tools are rather expensive, but most companies would much rather you just keep buying the product in order to replace the product that you already bought. As for Diamond Core, is like, here, just take a replacement, and you can probably buy these on their website as well. Granted, I haven't checked, but I'm guessing if they sent me replacements, they probably sell them as well. Let's start off with the avocado tool, the T7, just because I do have some stuff to trim already. Plus, whenever I carve stuff, I usually like to trim it first and then carve it. So let's just get these two out of the way real quick. Granted, I do technically have a very old Kemper pear trim tool here, but I wanted to test a new product against a new product. I don't think it would be very fair to test in my like old rusted out Kemper pear trim tool to a brand new Diamond Core trim tool. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get the new one that I bought just for this occasion and test the Diamond Core trim tool against a brand new Kemper tool, and I'll tell you how it feels. Wow, this tool over here is so old, it's actually rusted over. It still works, granted, this Kemper trim tool still works, and they're basically the same exact tool, but you can really tell this one's been through the wash. You know, that actually wasn't bad at all. It's been quite some time since I've used a brand new black carbon steel Kemper tool, and it was really nice. It was really smooth. I would have to give that a 5 out of 5 if I was being honest with you, but I think it's because that's as high as I've ever gone, other than the Mud Tools trim tool. I will say the one thing that I didn't like that much about the Kemper tool is that this foot right here is pretty small, and whenever I'm making my cups and my mugs and my teacups and things of that nature, I usually like to have a foot that's about this big. This should be just fine for the stability of the mug or the cup or whatever I'm making, right? That being said, this doesn't really fit in there too well, you know, this is kind of too big, and granted, those weird sculptural tools that a lot of people use for trimming, those are too small and cost extra effort. As for my Mud Tools trim tool that I usually use whenever I'm trimming, those things fit in there just fine because they have kind of this square angle at the bottom. And I know this isn't a Mud Tools trim tool review or anything, but that's one of the things that I've always liked about these, is if you kind of center your pot down, right, and you're trying to trim the middle and you're using a Kemper tool while it's spinning, you're not just like gonna do the middle like this. As for most of the stuff that I trim nowadays, I can very easily just flatten this out and it makes a very nice flat bottom right in the middle of that little gulch right there. So this is easier for me to trim the inside bottom of my pot if you do trim the inside bottom of your pot. That being said, whenever I'm trimming, I do usually prefer a larger surface area to be touching the tool. So because this is so large, which was a problem kind of for this area right here, it would be awesome if I was trimming the entirety of the body of this and I'd be covering this much space, this much space, this much space. I wouldn't have to do as much work. As for if I had like a tiny little one, like those ones that some sculptors use, I would have to do much more work and cover much more surface area if I had a smaller tool. The one thing that I do enjoy in general about the Kemper tool is the fact that it's so large that I can technically hold two sides like this and get really close stability, because the further back you are on your trim tool, like if you're holding it way back here and you're trying to trim like this, you're gonna have a lot less stability with your tool. One of the things that I've always loved about the Kemper tools is that they're so large in the trimming area that I can hold it right here, or I can even hold it at the base of the actual trim blade itself and still just kind of do this down the body and get maximum stability. And I wonder, because the Diamond Core tool is smaller than this, if I'll be able to do that maximum stability move. Now that we've talked about this Kemper tool a little bit, let's go over to the Diamond Core tool and see how it does with a brand new trim. Okay, there's two things to note with this tool in comparison to the Kemper trim tool over here that I noticed immediately. Number one, this is a little more sharp. This means that I don't have to put as much pressure as I would on this tool here to get the same effect of trimming. This can both be a good and bad thing depending on how hard you press. I am a fairly hard presser. I trim kind of deep whenever I trim my stuff. I also need maximum stability, so I'm honestly usually pushing down really hard like this whenever I'm trimming. As for a lot of people, I feel like trim like this, or they most likely just do the double stability move like this as they're trimming. This isn't something that I would need to do with this tool. This tool doesn't really need that much stability. Secondly, it's much smaller than the pear trim tool that I see over here with Kemper. This means that I'm covering a lot less surface area. But this tool does fit right in the middle of my foot, as opposed to this one here is sometimes just a little bit too big to fit in that foot there. This one I can't really flatten my bottom out. As for this one, I can kind of go back and forth as much as I want in here. I'm either going to have to make a larger foot, or I'm just going to have to figure out a way to trim it otherwise. Usually this results in me trimming with the Kemper trim tool in this fashion, where I kind of angle it in this way and go back and forth. I don't have to do that with the Diamond Core trim tool. I can just flatten it down and let it spin, let it go. And that's the main positive that I got from this tool. The main negative, however, is that this is a little bit too small for me. You didn't really get to see it because I clip and edit stuff so that you don't have to look at every single little minuscule motion that I do, but I ended up pulling so much clay out of here in between my trimming. I would basically spin this pot, right? I would trim it just a little bit, and then I would have to like dig out the clay, because if the clay is too small and it gets tangled up in the rest of the tool, I have to move it so I can keep cutting. I would trim a little bit and then I would do it again and again. I cleaned out this tool about 2 times more than I cleaned out this tool. This tool here is a little larger, as I keep saying, and because of that, it usually just kind of like fluffs off any excess clay because it's so large it's getting caught in the other parts of the tool. But this has a straight line and this has a curve, while the rest of the clay body kind of gets stuck in this little curve a little bit right here, and I have to clean this out 2 times more. I'll put a little unedited clip right here of me trimming with this tool in this same video about 5 minutes ago, but you can probably constantly see me trying to fit my big old sausage finger thumbs through this to clean it out, right? But as for this, I mean, my big old sausage finger thumb fits, and I can clean it out way easier than this little tiny tool right here. I think at this point there are positives and negatives to both. If you're making bigger stuff, probably about 8 inches or taller, I'd go with the Kemper Black Carbon trim tool. But if you're making smaller stuff, teacups, little tiny bowls that don't hold much food, if you're making things that are like dinnerware and smaller, go ahead and go with the Diamond Core T7. I've played with a lot of other trim tools, so I can kind of compare this to a lot of other ones. This is easily the smoothest trim tool I've ever used, although it might not be the most functional for my particular needs. Okay, so this one is the T6 from Diamond Core Tools. The tool itself is actually so fine and thin that you almost can't see it on the blue background of my towel over here. I probably have to, yeah, you can see it a little bit better right here. It's gone. Oh, there it is. It's gone. Oh, there it is. Sorry, I had to do that just in case any of my viewers were babies and I didn't know it. They probably just had the greatest time ever right now. I actually really enjoy this kind of edge right here because I often find myself using other tools to get this same edge. Before I had the T6 carving tool, I would usually get like one of these old sculptor tools and kind of put it to the side like this so I can kind of carve through my clay body, or I would get like one of these and try and do that same motion and be like, all right, I could get a nice edge, right? I could do one of those. I don't really have to do any of that with this tool over here. I can very simply just have a tool that is specifically meant for carving at that angle. I'm looking forward to this, seeing as the avocado trim tool was such a smooth experience that I think this one will be quite smooth as well. And that's probably one of the things that I look for the most whenever I'm carving. Half the time I end up getting like these little boogers or something in the clay body just because the drag wasn't smooth enough, or I didn't have enough of a handle on it and I'm sitting there like trying my best to etch something out. I don't think that'll happen with this tool, but we're about to find out. Oh wow, okay, that was smooth. That was real. That was only one stroke and that was real smooth. Oh my god. All right, okay, let's do the rest. I loved every second of that. I usually have a terrible time and I go back and I make corrections on everything whenever I'm carving stuff. And you see this right here, like this little bit of clay that's stuck inside the clay body right here. I usually have to go over, although I will say this was probably one of the smooth, you know what? This was the smoothest experience I have ever had carving my stuff. I'm probably gonna be using this a lot more. I am very excited because I technically have a whole nother one to carve right now, but this was really just one patternized test. I didn't put too much thought into this. This is not very intricate. This for me took me like 3 minutes to do. This is an A1 tool, 5 out of 5 Diamond Core. You made an excellent carving tool. It's really difficult to give it a proper review on my channel because as far as I'm concerned, you're not gonna know what this feels like until you have one of these in your hand of your very own. I would suggest getting like not a crappy, but a regular trim tool and then buying one of these. It makes a world of difference. I have maybe about 3 or 4 different carving or trim tools around here that I just use for carving in the first place, and now that I have an actual carving tool from Diamond Core, I'm probably never going to use those once again. I actually enjoyed that quite a bit. It was a very smooth experience. So this piece is just a tester piece. I'm most likely not going to keep it. It was just for this tool. So don't be alarmed that I'm not like making fine art in front of you. Just calm down there, comment section. I tested out the tools a couple different ways while I was using this piece. So this space up here was just to see if I can make little divots in the clay body in a little patternized section so that I can see how it comes out. It wasn't too bad. It was a fairly smooth experience, but I will say making little divots with this kind of stroke-ish carving tool isn't that much different from just getting a regular pear trim tool and doing it myself. The dots would probably be a little bit bigger as opposed to these, which seem diamond shaped because duh. But as I got down the body, I slowly started to do longer and longer strokes, kind of testing out the pressure. So the pressure was really hard right here. Like I tried to push a good medium amount of pressure. I was worried about digging into the clay body because it's so new and sharp. That was a little bit of a worry for me. This is a fairly sharp and brand new tool, but I think if you have one of these yourself, that worry will go down with time as you get used to the pressure. The third thing I did, which I liked a lot, was I started to do longer strokes with less pressure. This takes very little pressure to make these type of long, nice strokes that come off like this at the edge. And I love that. That doesn't happen with every single tool. A lot of my older tools, just like you gotta push real hard to the point where if you put barely any pressure, it gives you almost nothing in the clay body depending on what you're using. This does that. It really responds to your pressure, and I like that a lot. I would probably say my only real complaint about this tool is that my thumb started to kind of hurt as I was using it. Like I was carving all the way down the body and it slowly started to hurt as I was making these little divots here in this clay body. But to be fair, they do sell those, and that's kind of dependent on me. Like if you have arthritis or you have something like that, the tools that they sell to accompany this tool will help you with that. They make grips specifically for that purpose. But I think that's less of a tool problem and more of a I just have been doing this my entire life and my hands be hurting. One tiny little issue before we get going is the definition of these two are technically trim tools. The T before the number in the Diamond Core tools stands for trim. That's why this is called the T6 and this is called the T7. Although I do realize I compared this to the Kemper trim tool and I compared this to a carving tool. I just want to point out that the technical term for these two are trim tools, although I see people mostly use this tool for carving in textures into their pots, and I see people using this shape in this tool mostly for trimming their bottoms. I have almost never in my life heard anyone say, I'm going to carve my bottom, and I've never heard anyone say, I'm going to trim in a texture. Most people say, I'm going to carve a texture, and they say, I'm going to trim my bottoms. Granted, I'm sure there's someone in the comments below right now who's like, you called them carving tools, but they're both trim tools. And in all fairness, these are technically both from the company called trim tools. Although no one's using, I've never seen anyone use a shape like this to trim. Most of us are using this to carve textures into our clay body. Imagine you're having a nice conversation with your potter friend and he's like, all right, I gotta get home and carve my bottoms. You would immediately stop him and be like, excuse me, you mean trim? Excuse me, what? All of that being said, thank you potters for joining me today. I just wanted to give you an honest review on what I thought about these carving tools. I'm not a big carver. I don't carve very much. I might start doing it more with this tool. I really do like this tool. That being said, I do trim the bottoms of all of my pots. If there are any other potters in my comment section, please go ahead, put some words of wisdom down below just to kind of help some people out in the comments below. I'm not a huge carver, but I bet there's some people who like carve their lives away down in the comments below. That being said, if you'd like to see any of my actual artwork, the links are always down below. My website where you can buy some stuff, the podcast, my Instagram if you just want to look at pretty pottery. Look, that's all Instagram is for. It's looking at pretty things, okay? Just go look. Hopefully this review helped you potters out in deciding whether you want to buy some Diamond Core tools or not. Thank you, giant shout out to Diamond Core for sending me these tools. They're not paying me, I'm not sponsored. I think they were just being nice to me. Thank you guys so much. That being said, I love your Dirty Potter faces. Good luck on your next art projects, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week. I'm not too fond of this, but we're just doing a review. It's not I'm not making masterwork here. There's always like 3 people in the comments below who are like, that doesn't look very good. You know what? This is the level that we care about right now, okay? This is a review. I'm not trying to flex on you on a review. Calm down.